Hi, this is Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation Podcast. This podcast isn't some magic trick about how to work less. Instead, it's about how to really enjoy the work that you do and to enjoy your vacation time. Hi, it's Sean, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation. When we talk about Napoleon Bonaparte, we bring about this topic of Waterloo and how he got defeated there. But 8 years before Waterloo, something happened, and that involved rabbits. Around July 1807, Napoleon was probably in a good mood because he had signed a treaty of Tilsit, and this ended the war between the French Empire and Imperial Russia. So they decided, okay, let's have a rabbit hunt. And the chief of staff was put in charge of that. And he arranged for this big outdoor lunch. A lot of bigwigs were invited. And when you have all these big shots, you need to somehow organize things. So you can't just go around finding rabbits. They decided to have a colony of rabbits. We don't know exactly whether they were in their hundreds or thousands, but there was an assumption there was around 3,000 rabbits. 3,000 of these rabbits all caged up and ready to go. It's the day of the hunt, and you have all of these drum beaters and guns going off, and the rabbits are off. They're off from their cages, and the hunt is officially on. Something weird happens at this point in time. The rabbits don't scamper. They don't go running off in every direction. Instead, they go straight towards Napoleon and his men. All of these hundreds or thousands or whatever they were, they all go straight for Napoleon. It's like a comedy in action. And, of course, the whole group starts laughing. But as this continues, they're not laughing anymore. They try beating them back. They have sticks. They try pushing the rabbits back. They continue to come at Napoleon and his men in wave after wave after wave. And the actions that they're taking seems to be working, but it's only a short respite. The rabbits turned the emperor's flank and they attacked him frantically in the rear, refusing to quit their hold. They piled themselves between his legs till they made him stagger and forced the conqueror of conquerors, who was now fairly exhausted, to retreat and leave them in possession of the field. At this point, Napoleon has had enough. He rushes to his carriage, but that doesn't stop the rabbits, because they seemed to be coming from both sides, from the flanks, and they were headed to the imperial coach. The attack, it seems, stopped only once the coach had rolled away. Why were the rabbits doing this? This was not normal behavior. You'd expect them to do completely the opposite. But there they were, engaging in what you and I would consider to be very irrational behavior. The problem lay in the fact that they were not wild rabbits. They'd got these rabbits from local farmers, and rabbits are fed every day. To them, Napoleon was just someone who was serving the food. And their eagerness was enhanced by the fact that they hadn't been fed all day. When we started listening to this story, it seemed slightly irrational. But there's a very clear rationale behind it. And this is kind of what happens when clients want to read something, want to engage with something, whether it be audio or video. We have this perception that everything that needs to be done is already done. Why would anybody listen to us? And we covered this in the last one. But today, we're going to cover the reasons why people behave in this rather irrational way. No matter how much information is out there, these 4 reasons are why clients keep coming back. And yes, they're looking for the next lettuce. So let's start out with today's podcast and let's find out what's in store. The question is, why do people keep looking for new writers or new content creators? There are several reasons why we read, why we watch, why we listen. The first is to solve a problem right now. The second is to solve the problem but to understand the bigger picture. The third is pure entertainment. And the fourth is to stumble upon something that we weren't looking for in the first place. Let's start out with the first reason why people behave in this manner. They have enough content, but they're still looking. And that is, they're solving a problem right now. The most common form of learning, that's what we do on Google. Recently, we had these fruit that you get in New Zealand, and they're called feijoa. And we had quite a few disfigured fruit. So we were trying to figure out what's wrong with this fruit. And what we learned was that there is a guava moth that kind of gets after these fruit as well. It goes after guavas and it goes after feijoas as well. Now, we needed to know, is it good? Is it bad for you? Do we just remove that worm and eat the fruit? Is it really as bad as it seems for your intestines? We don't know the answers, so we're looking for information. And this is the kind of thing that people are always looking for. They're looking for that information that fills that gap of knowledge that they have. If I'm trying to figure out a dance step, I will search for it on YouTube. And if I'm trying to figure out a word, maybe a word like show off in Spanish, then I would have to go to an online dictionary or some source where I could get that translation. That's a transaction. That's a transaction-based action, and one that we tend to do most of the time. You don't tend to pop into a library to figure out a word. You don't buy a book to understand a line. But what we do is this transaction. When we want instant information, we go out there. So we have information on how to get clients. We have information on how to retain clients. We have information on pricing. We have all of this information. But today we have that unique problem, and we're going to go online. If we find an article that solves the problem, well and good. If we find a podcast, well and good. But often we'll find a book or a course or something. And that's the primary reason why we go online. We go there to buy something, to buy information. And that's the first reason why people go. So even though we have all this information, it has existed before, we're still going there to get the information and to create this first transaction. That's the first reason. What's the second reason? The second reason is to understand the bigger picture. Let's say that you wanted to understand why you're struggling to learn a language. You run into the video, and let's say that the person speaks 10 languages. It's at this point that you realize that the person has systems, or at least an understanding, that is slightly different from yours. That you need depth, you need a bigger picture. And at this point, it's no longer just you dipping your toe, doing that transaction, buying something and running away. You want to jump in. You want to stay a while. When you find yourself reading more than one article or more than one book, watching more than one video, or continuing to do a course from start to finish, what you're doing is you're digging into that bigger picture. It's possible, for instance, that you joined Psychotactics because you read a single article. You then decided, okay, let's take a minimal amount of risk and let's buy a book that's low priced, something like The Brain Audit or Chaos Planning. And it's at this point you're starting to roam widely in the Psychotactics universe. We do this kind of deep dive a lot when we get better explanations or faster results. There might be 10,000 other books and websites. There might be 10,000 personal trainers or yoga classes. But the person that you choose, and this is your choices over other people, is because you know that it's more than just a one-time transaction. our behavior is not as irrational as you think. We have all the stuff, but then we want specific information. Once we have specific information, we go, oh, so this person knows a fair bit about all of this stuff. Let me look for more information. And we start going through that universe and getting more books or courses or whatever from that one person. Or if it's fiction, then you start reading more of, say, Dan Brown. One book, second book, third book, fourth book. You go down that pathway. But the third reason, and it's funny that I mentioned Dan Brown, because the third reason is pure entertainment. And we call it entertainment, but really it's an understanding of structure. When you watch a terrible movie, what you're doing is you're going through just a transaction. It's just bad. So you've just got the movie, you're having a meal, you're sitting down on the sofa, and it's like too much work to go looking for more stuff on Netflix. So you're going through a transaction. You may do the same thing on YouTube, which is you'll watch one video, maybe a second one, and then you'll leave. But when someone is truly entertaining, they are working on two separate levels. They're giving you information, but they're doing so in a way that makes you curious to want to learn more. And I mentioned Dan Brown, who's the author of The Da Vinci Code. And he's writing that story, and you're following the story, and it's a thriller, and he knows how to do that. But he's also giving you historical context. Now, if you were to read a novel that has a great story, you'll still read it. But if you have a novel that also informs you, gives you historical context or geographical context or something where you get smarter at the same time as you're being entertained, well, now that's a whole new level. Which is why when we're writing something or creating something that's entertaining, then we have to add information. And when we're writing something that's information-based, maybe a course, maybe a presentation, maybe a book, maybe anything that you're doing, then you have to add the layer of entertainment. And then it's like the bunnies come at you at high speed from both flanks. And the reason for this is that we don't just want information. We have had enough of information. We just really, at some level, want to be entertained. In fact, we just want a magic wand. We don't even want the information. If someone could just come in and show us how to do pricing, just tap us on the head and, hey, it's done, we would be happier with that. If someone said, okay, you don't have to do this article writing course, you don't need any notes, you don't need any videos, you will just be able to magically write, well, that's much better, isn't it? So when you have information, if you don't have some level of entertainment, well, that doesn't work. But if you do, then you've got the bunny attack again. People coming towards you, even though they've got other article writing courses or books on planning or whatever it is that you're selling, whatever it is that you're doing. So far, we've seen three levels why people behave irrationally. They want new information. The second is once they get that information and they're happy with the information, they still want to go around that universe and figure out what other stuff do you have. But then we get to the third level, which we just covered, and then we get a full attack. And the full attack is because now you've added either information to entertainment or entertainment to information. And that's what most of us deal with. We have the information and we need to add the entertainment. And finally, there is the fourth one. This is called the stumble. What is the stumble? When we go on a trip abroad, we might stumble on a little restaurant, or maybe a shop with lots of fountain pens and fancy paper. We didn't set out to find it, but we have found it, and then we are very excited. A lot of YouTube watching is almost always a stumble, because that's what YouTube does. It presents stuff based on what we've seen. So it throws more of that stuff, that universe. But it also throws stuff at you that you would not expect, or things, people that you've not viewed before. So there you are in this new country, this place where you're having a holiday, and you know where you can get fountain pens on the internet, but you still want to stumble upon that place. You still want to find out, where do I get these fountain pens? Because it's different. It's creating a whole new feeling for you. And when you do, when you stumble upon something and it works for you, you're deliriously excited. Most people come to psychotactics because of marketing, but then they stumble upon something like cartooning, or they stumble upon some weird workshop that we're having somewhere in Spain or something like that. And there is this stumble upon factor that also draws people, because suddenly they realize that, oh, there's this fun activity that I can do as well. And we now live in the age of AI. We live in an age where we don't know what's going to happen next. But what we do know is how humans have behaved and how they will continue to behave whenever they're looking for information. And they have these 4 steps that they take. The first is, I'm going to solve the problem right now. And if you can solve my problem, then I'm going to buy from you. Once they buy from you, they still want to explore what else you have. It's almost like wandering into a shop and figuring out, hey, I came here for this one thing, but now I want other stuff as well. And once they do that, they look for a different level. They're looking whether your information is also entertaining, or if you're entertaining, you're also informational. And this doesn't just apply to information products. This applies to anything. If you've got a retail shop, you can make it entertaining. If you're selling shoes, you can make it entertaining as well. There's no limit to the factor of entertainment. People want to be part of that. They want to feel happy about what they're doing. And of course, entertainment is a whole different topic. But this is the third reason why people are looking for new stuff all the time, even though there's all this other stuff. And finally, there's just this serendipity. They just want to find something. They don't know what it is. They know they can get it elsewhere, but they just want to stumble upon it. It's a happy feeling. And these are the reasons why you should learn to write. You should learn to draw. This is why you should learn to speak. Speak as in front of an audience, maybe better on Zoom, maybe in front of a smaller group or even a bigger group. Because humans may do what they do, which is transactional, but they also want to do what's more interesting. Napoleon got a big fright, but I'm sure that when they went back, they would have had their drinks and they would have had all the food that was laid out for them, and they would have had a good laugh. And you can have a good laugh too, because you've understood what is it that causes people to come back even though there's all that information out there. But what is the one thing that you can focus on? And this is the thing that most people don't. And that is, if there is information, how will I make it more entertaining? And if it's entertainment, how will I make it more informational? It's almost something that gets slipped under and you don't notice it, but it's very crucial. So that brings us to the end of this podcast. Let's find out what's happening in Psychotactics Land. At the end of every podcast, I go, oh, and then we'll see you in 5000 BC. And maybe you think about it, maybe you don't. But what is 5000 BC? Well, there are lots of websites out there, lots of membership sites out there. And of course, we've got information that's coming out of our ears, nose, everywhere. What's different about 5000 BC is that you can ask your question and then I answer it, then others in the group answer it. And people don't believe that I would be around so often, because you go to most membership sites and they're specifically built so that you have recurring revenue, but you don't have to be there. So they just put more and more information and hope that you come back. But information doesn't solve a problem. It creates bigger problems because you run into hurdles that you'd not anticipated. And this is where 5000 BC is different, in the sense that when you ask the question and when you get stuck, or sometimes you don't even have to get stuck, you will be asked a few questions by me about why you're going down this path. And then you get guided down that path. So it's almost like having a coach, but not someone who shows up once a week or once a month, but 15 times a day or 50 times a day if that's what you need. One of us will run out of energy and it won't be me. So that's what 5000 BC is all about. If you're not sure about what you're getting, go to 5000bc.com, sign up to the waitlist. You have to pay $10 to be on that waitlist, and then you get goodies. And then after 21 days, you get entry into 5000 BC. And we've had members in 5000 BC going back to 2003. But there are from 2008 and 2014, and they still are members. So it shows you that it's not just a hit and run kind of place. Check it out. Go to 5000bc.com. I'll say bye for now. Bye-bye. Still listening? One of the courses that we began way back in 2005 was never meant to exist, and that's the article writing course. This is probably the course that's the most in-demand course because people want to learn to write. And even in this day of AI, I mean, come on, there's good stuff and there's better stuff. So anyway, we're going back in 2005 onwards, and I didn't think that anybody would need to learn to write. So I already thought people can write. And what I'd learned in advertising, which is where I came from, is that you can just put something out. You don't have to sell it necessarily. And we just announced an article writing course without a lot of fanfare or details. And when we opened the course, it filled up immediately. That was like a whole bunch of bunnies. And time again, this is the kind of thing that happens. When people have experienced something that they've already enjoyed, in this case, they enjoyed the brain audit, then they were able to trust us with the article writing course. We didn't think that it was necessary. We didn't think that anybody would show up, but they did. And we have all of this irrational kind of behavior that we've noticed over the years. But when we think about it, it's not irrational at all. People are just looking for the lettuce. They just want their problem solved. And with that, I'll say bye for now. Bye-bye. Oh yeah, I'll see you in 5000 BC.